This presentation is on the coherence principle, which talks about when people learn better when extraneous material is left out. That could be with extra pictures that don't really fit what's going on, or words, or music that really just distracts the learner from what they should be actually focusing on. So this is my first example of a slide that I think violates the coherence principle. While I think the information is great, I even think it's pretty organized, easy to follow. But when I first look at this slide, my eyes are incredibly drawn to the child that's in the middle of everything else. And so I kind of get lost of reading the words because I'm analyzing what the child's doing and looking at the pose that he has instead of actually paying attention to the words. So if I was presenting this information, I might organize the words such like this and give the people watching my presentation a chance to read the words first. Maybe have a group discussion about how we think these words are categorized. And then let them know that they're all types of formative assessments. By giving my readers a chance to actually read the words for themselves, this actually works in the modality principle instead of having me read every single one of the different types of formative assessments on the screen. My next example of a slide, pretty similar to the one that I had before, where I think it's different is that while my eye again is drawn to the child that's in the picture, what I also then notice is that the words are not organized in a very clear way. They try to work everything so much around the child that you kind of lose finding the importance of the words that are on the screen. So the way I took this slide was that I actually presented it with a video that I thought was more powerful than the words that were on the screen.
There's been a wonderful real-time change in the way we're able to adapt to student needs.
What formative assessment am I using daily so that I can measure whether or not in that class period kids are learning the material? A good exit ticket can tell whether or not a kid has a superficial understanding of the information or has some depth of understanding. And then the next day, the teacher can differentiate their lesson based on student needs. An exit ticket is a formative assessment linked to the objective of the lesson.
Typically they're short, just a few questions, and they're focused on one particular skill. And we design them ourselves. They're just what I want to know if the students mastered that day in the classroom. It can also be used to kind of anticipate something that you might be working on for the next day's lesson. Do they already know it, or do they know parts of it? Where can you kind of start your lesson?
Some teachers use Pull Anywhere. Some teachers utilize a Google form where kids can enter in their information, and then that Google form will then organize the data for the teacher into an Excel spreadsheet. And some teachers just use paper and pencil.
First thing, let's circle number one, exit ticket. If I just want to know key points, what are the best things that your group came up with? Your connections, so historically, a current events connection, a connection you made to
I just wanted to see where each group kind of really got to in their discussion in terms of depth. It lets me see which group, if they're not reaching that level, for example, that I should spend a lot more time talking with them and helping them to develop that, and which groups are working really well independently.
We use the digital exit tickets weekly or daily depending on the unit.
And we purposely use one, so every 9th grade student we have that data.
We teach the same course and we co-plan every single day's lesson together. And that gives us a real opportunity to discuss what our data is showing and what do we need to change. We can use exit tickets to focus in on just understanding one small concept. For instance, today's exit ticket asked them to identify what elements were in persuasion, what elements were in argument, and then we gave them examples of pathos, ethos, and logos. They had to identify which of those elements were most prominent. So that gave us an idea of whether or not they could differentiate between the three.
So let's talk through argument versus persuasion first.
A lot of them understand that logos belongs with argument, but they're also lumping in additional elements. And I'm definitely seeing that the entire group needs to review the differences between argument and persuasion. Argument has logos only. Today you are going to be using logos, pathos, and ethos for persuasion. It's important just that you notice the difference between them.
How about persuasion?
I think that's where we're going to be able to pull out the students that need just a little bit more reteaching.
So clearly, like, the text isn't working for them, so let's do that same visual thing.
I think advertisements that they're already familiar with so that they have a place of prior knowledge and context. Logos, pathos, or ethos. We're looking at this beautiful advertisement of Superman. What is the most prominent persuasive element you see here?
Let's have our higher level group, since they've demonstrated through this exit ticket that they can definitely identify those three things in what they're reading. Let's move them up to author's purpose.
People on the computers in the back, you'll be watching a video and writing a one paragraph response. You'll turn in at the end of class.
When you look around the room, you would think they're all working on the same activity, but in actuality, it's at different levels.
They'll sit down with you, they'll help you learn the material to make sure you get the full grasp of what we're learning in that class.
Using data-driven instruction in the classroom in the form of an exit ticket really allows a teacher to identify each student's strengths and weaknesses as they're walking into your classroom every day. There's no one who's falling through the cracks.
So why are exit tickets powerful tools? They're like short assessments, which are, and so they're like a mini test or a quiz, but they are given more often, so students may feel more comfortable taking them and might actually do better on them because some of that pressure of a test or a quiz is gone. As you can see from the video, that it can be very data driven and help you differentiate that in your classroom, where you might figure out that you have to reteach the whole thing because students aren't getting the concept that you thought that you were teaching, or maybe you can have the students work in small groups, or you can teach to small groups to target certain learning goals that you are looking for. They should be very short, kept at towards probably the end of class is how most exit tickets are given, and should be used as an assessment tool. So these are my two examples of how I would redo the slides using the coherence principle, of finding a video that was more powerful than just those words on the screen so that a teacher could fully understand why exit tickets are powerful, and then reorganizing the words and taking out some of the pictures that might have been distracting.